Hello, this is Mr. Turk, and today I'm going to show you how to add selective color to an image. And I'm actually going to show you two different ways to do it. There's the way that's suggested in this PDF, and then there's kind of a quick way we can do it with the quick selection tool and layer masks as well. So I know where my image is, I know what folder it's in, what it's called. I'm going to open it in Photoshop by opening up Photoshop. And a real quick way to open up images in Photoshop is clicking and dragging. There we go. Alright, when your image opens up in Photoshop, you can go straight to the adjustment panel, and you can add a hue saturation adjustment layer. And when you make that adjustment layer, it's automatically going to give you a layer mask for that layer. And we're actually going to do kind of a creative selective color on this image. So we're going to turn the saturation all the way down to make the image black and white. And then we're going to just going to paint a little bit of him back into the image as color. So we're going to switch to our brush tool. And right now I got my brush set to a soft round. Let's turn up the hardness just a little bit there. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Okay, and I can do that up here in the options bar, or I can use my bracket keys to make it larger or smaller, or I could hit the shift bracket key to make it softer or harder. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort of like go back and forth and paint some of the color back in here. I have my layer mask active, and I'm going to make sure that I have my default black and white swatches in my toolbox down here. And the way to switch between these two is I can use this button right here on the toolbox to switch between my foreground and my background layer, or I can hit the X key. And when I paint with black on my layer mask, that is going to mask out our adjustment layer and add the color back in. And so the cool thing about this is I'm painting with pure black and I'm adding just a little bit of color back in. And you can be really creative with this. If you want, you can add, you know, kind of a harder, let's add a harder edge here. We can just sort of like give him kind of a, you know, a splash of color around just him, like that. And we can do that with other adjustment layers. We can add, let's add brightness, like real dark. And then we'll paint some of that back in. We can kind of use this to creatively highlight parts of our photo. You can do it any way you want, but this is just one way to kind of use the adjustment layers to sort of like highlight part of our photo. Another way we could accent part of our photo is we could turn off these adjustment layers down in the layer panel. We're going to go to our actual image layer, which is our background layer right now. And we're just going to make a selection of the part of the image that we want to mask. So we're going to go to our quick selection tool. And I'm just going to quickly make a selection of our central subject right here by clicking and dragging. It doesn't have to be perfect, because I'm just making it for this example. Okay, that's pretty good. You get the idea. It's not perfect. We could go into the select and mask dialog box here, and we could further refine this if we wanted to. But for our purposes, I'm just going to assume that this is a good selection of our subject. Once you've got your subject selected, it's really easy to add another layer mask to this, and another hue saturation adjustment layer. With the layer mask, just click on adjustments, click hue saturation, and your active selection will become a layer mask for that layer. So right now I can do one of two things. I could do the desaturation again, or I could use the colorize option. And I'm going to colorize this. So I'm going to check mark the colorize box. And let's say the school color is green, so we're going to switch it to green. And we're just going to duplicate this, because let's say I want him to be green and the background to be black and white. So that's really easy. Just take your adjustment layer, click and drag that down into new. And then for this layer mask, you're going to invert it, so that instead of masking just him, we're going to mask the background. So click on your layer mask, and under the properties panel, you're going to see this mask properties pop open, and you're going to just click invert. And so now we're going to change this, the background one, to desaturated. I'm going to turn down the saturation. So we used the exact same mask, so they should be a 1-to-1 ratio, and we just flipped it. We just inverted the mask so that the background's black and white, and the top layer here is a colorized layer in green. The beautiful thing about this is when you're outputting saves, you can just sort of like try out different kinds of looks. So like, let's say I want the background to stay black and white with color. We can just uncheck this and save it as a JPEG again, and we'll have this version. So that can be really handy when you're trying to figure out which option looks best.